What is going on, guys? MJ2005 Gundam here, and today I'm going to be reviewing the P-Bandai Real Grade Blast Impulse Gundam Spec II from Gundam Seed Freedom. Simply equipped with a state-of-the-art battery instead of a nuclear fusion reactor, it is piloted by Luna Maria Hawk at the start of the final battle for bombarding the hordes of approaching grunts. For a standard-sized real grade, the Blast Impulse Spec II comes in an incredibly thick box, and in it contains 25 runners and a peel-off decal sheet. And since the bulk of this kit is based around the core real grade Impulse Gundam, only 6 of the runners are entirely new, so please check out our review on the original real grade Force Impulse for more details. But I will say that the greens are more susceptible to nub and scratch marks, which may pose a bit of a challenge. For the new parts, however, the railgun is just like any other real grade firearm, but the blast silhouette is the major focus, since despite the pack itself being the standard real grade affair, the cannons feature quite a few mechanics that will need accounting for, so precise alignment of pieces, big and small, is imperative. Otherwise, the rest of the build doesn't overstay its welcome despite it being identical to every other real grade Impulse, so getting to the fresh stuff doesn't feel tedious. A full straight build later, and the real grade Blast Impulse Gundam Spec II is realistic in that the paint scheme is quite army-like, with a camo pattern being the only thing missing to further that effect. Personally, I've never been a fan of the idea of reusing the same silhouettes, nor the redone color schemes of the Sword and Blast Spec II. But I think the real grade's quote-unquote realistic aesthetic makes the color scheme work much better. However, that's not enough to draw attention away from the Blast silhouette, as I really like the way the massive cannons integrate with and enhance the Impulse's presence, not to mention that a closer look reveals a high level of surface detail and parts sculpting, especially for all the vents and thrusters. With such high levels of detail, it'd be a shame to not at least bring them out despite the darker color scheme. But otherwise, the real grade Blast Impulse Spec II doesn't require much else from the modeler besides some panel lining, and is almost perfect out of the box. Almost. If we have to talk about colors, I think the light greens are far too green, while the teal like on the feet and abs is too rich when compared to the animation model. However, real grades take their design liberties anyway, so I don't think it's something that needs acting on. At least that's what I tell myself to avoid another round of heavy paint work, and having my next conversation be with my ancestors instead of a potential girlfriend. Articulation wise, the main thruster can move, the rail cannons can flip down and rotate side to side, while the main cannons are movable on 2 ball joints and 2 lockable hinges after untabbing the support arms, allowing for solid connections, flexible adjustability, and unhindered cooperation with the main body, which retains the same range of movements and structural integrity. However, it's worth noting that the blast silhouettes can lead to the kits being extremely back heavy, and the dodgy forearms aren't going to work in this kit's favor either. Accessories start with the carryover loadouts of beam rifle, mobile shield, and anti-armor knives, so the old favorites are still made available. Onto the new stuff, and you'd get the full set of real grade Impulse hands, as well as an extra right holding hand without a tab in its palm. This is so that holding the Kerberos high energy long range beam cannons by the fold out handles would be easy to set up by simply sliding them into the hands for use. Additionally, the cannons can extend to automatically deploy the heat vents, while granting easier access to the vents in front of the handle. Secondarily, the extension makes way for the other opening hatches for retrieving the Defiance beam javelins. While never used by Luna in the movie, each of the handles can be plugged into the holding hands with tabs on 2 different positions for use with the included beams. Or they can couple up to form a double-ended spear or an extra long javelin. And if you think the beams are oversized, that's because they are, since they were used from the master grade Blast Impulse, which makes the display very comical. Moreover, the coupling isn't exactly the strongest in the world, so holding the combined javelin with one hand would be a bit problematic. Moving back to the cannons, they can alternatively deploy upwards to display the quadruple missile launchers in use, while the Deluge hypervelocity rail cannons can swing down for deployment and extra firepower. Finally, a real grade version of the Type 35 prototype advanced railgun is included in this kit, featuring vastly different surface detail compared to the high grade version, full color separation, a metallic blue scope decal, and a moving foregrip. It plugs into the trigger finger hands for use and causes no weight issues. Meanwhile, a tab on its right side can be deployed for storage in one of 2 methods, either by plugging directly onto the back skirt, or stored in the lower position using an adapter to get out of the way of deploying the beam cannons. On top of that, besides the opening cockpit hatch, the kits can be separated into the different flyers, with everything included for such a display, namely the adapters for the chest and legs, landing gear and missiles for the core Splendor, and a silhouette flyer for the pack. So if you want your Blast Impulse to be in bits or to satisfy your ADHD, the Blast Spec II still has everything to do so. When it comes to leftovers, herein lies the problem of recoloring variable phase shift armor without the weapons following suit, as you have duplicates of everything that is light green on the body, and those in red and white on the accessories, including the core Splendor and Silhouette Flyer, on top of the leftover shoulder panels that exist in the Impulse Spec II, and Shin Asuka being unwanted despite appearing twice in this kit. Essentially, if you have an extra frame, face, and clear pieces lying around, you'd more or less have a duplicate real grade Impulse. But if anything, the V-fin can serve as a backup if you repaint it. Ever since its inception, the Blast Impulse Gundam seems to get the short end of the stick when it comes to merchandise, and that's also the case for the regular real grade trio. Now that Bandai has finally, and presumably begrudgingly, given us a real grade Blast Impulse kit, is it worth it? Firstly, it's the Spec II, so seed purists might be fuming over it while the standard variant is eons away from being conceptualized, and secondly, it's absolutely scummy to lock the real grade railgun behind a premium paywall and leave the Force Spec II without it. But more seriously, I personally would have strongly recommended it regardless had it not been for three aspects: the leftovers, the dubious, comical, and frankly forgettable being javelins, and the easily worn out forearms due to the way the kit is posed holding onto the giant cannons on the back, further highlighting and worsening the one flaw of the real grade Impulse Gundam. Otherwise, even though what people clamored for is essentially a backpack with two pairs of guns, the work put into their looks and automatic vents made it quite interesting, while the real grade Impulse Gundam is just as enjoyable as ever minus the lump marks on the green pieces, and the repeat construction doesn't overstay its welcome. If anything, I think the real grade Blast Impulse Gundam Spec II is what I've expected of it mechanically. Whether you get this one or wait until the heat death of the universe for the vanilla version is up to you. And that's all for me. Thank you for watching, drop a like and comment if you did enjoy the video, subscribe for more content like this, and feel free to follow me on social media with the links down below. That said, take it easy, stay safe, and I'll see you all in the next video. Peace out guys, bye bye.